Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. Hello, I'm Erin Cofield. I am a registered dietitian and Vice President of Communications at National Dairy Council. National Dairy Council is a nonprofit nutrition, education, and research organization, and we're a 501c3 funded by dairy farmers since 1915, so 115 years this year. We also are a dairy checkoff. National Dairy Council's mission is to bring to life the dairy community's vision of a healthy, happy, and sustainable world, backed by science as the foundation. On behalf of National Dairy Council, the sponsor of today's luncheon, it is my honor to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Katie Brown. Dr. Brown is president of National Dairy Council. She's a nationally recognized nutrition leader and educator. She champions the power of food to shape healthier lives and stronger communities. She leads a dynamic team that drives dairy research, regulatory, and scientific affairs and outreach efforts that amplify dairy's relevance in health promotion, sustainable nutrition, and modern wellness. Katie is a renowned connector across public health and sustainable food systems, helping to bridge science, culture, and food and agriculture innovation. An engaging speaker and TEDx presenter, Katie brings decades of experience as a registered dietitian, academic, entrepreneur, to every stage in conversation. She was named fellow of both the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the American Society for Nutrition. And she has a passion and is a champion for making eating guidance simple and accessible, empowering consumers, especially moms and women, to achieve lifelong wellness. From local communities to global forums, she's known for making nutrition science relatable and actionable for everyone, and you're going to get to see that today. Please help welcome Dr. Katie Brown.
All right, well, thanks for being here today. It's important to have this conversation about women's wellness, and I'm very pleased to be with all of you today. Here is the accreditation statement. This session is worth 1 CPEU. Here are my disclosures. And here are the objectives for today. So what is the state of women's health today? Well, we're certainly living longer, both men and women, thanks to advancements in medicine and healthcare and safety of the food supply. According to the CDC, life expectancy in 1900 was 47 years of age. And can you imagine, 47? Today, life expectancy is 80 years of age for those of us in the US. And of course, there's differences among race and ethnicity, but across the board, women live longer than men. But I'm certainly grateful that we have longer longevity. I'm guessing we all do. But it's not just the number of years, right? We also want to live a high quality life. But unless we have a very strong genetic profile, it's going to take some work and some intentionality and some effort to live both a long life and a high quality life. And in that regard, ladies in the room, we have some work to do. Because according to data from the World Economic Forum, women will spend 25% more of our lives in poor health compared to men. And these aren't just years of illness and disability at the end of our lives. Nearly 50% of our health burdens will occur during our working years, between the ages of 20 and 64. And that impacts our ability to be present and productive in our homes, in our communities, in the workplace. And one of the leading health burdens comes from the effect of our cardiometabolic health. Now, you're familiar with these statistics. Nearly 75% of adults in the US are living with overweight and obesity. Obesity rates for about the past decade plus have been about 42%, relatively stable, but rates of severe obesity among women are nearly double that compared to men. Heart disease is the #1 cause of illness and death for both men and women, and yet more women than men die from heart disease each year. contributing to nearly 20% of women's deaths annually. And of all Americans with osteoporosis, 80% are women. So what's at the root cause for this health gap for women? Well, we can point to at least 3 things. 1, science and data. Research historically hasn't focused on women's health issues. Historically, men have both led and been the primary participants in clinical trials. 2, education and awareness. Many women's health issues have been stigmatized, resulting in lack of awareness and open dialogue about women's bodies. And 3rd, care delivery. Many health professionals lack medical education on women's specific health issues. And I'll throw a 4th one in. Women are more likely than men to postpone or skip seeking medical care. Anybody guilty of that? And so with all of this, not so great news, the good news is we are in an era, a new era of women's wellness. Now, as dietitians, we've dedicated our careers to improving health fueled by food that we know can transform lives for the better. And on the topic of health and wellness, we're quite on trend. According to a recent McKinsey report, for the vast majority of Americans, 82%, health and wellness is a top priority or very important in our day-to-day lives. And women in particular are embracing a food first and food as medicine approach to achieving the wellness benefits they're interested in. And they're turning to foods to help them supercharge their digestive system and gut health. Foods that will help them achieve their desired body composition and body weight, and foods that will help them stay strong and energized throughout the day and every day. This is today's modern concept of wellness. Now, a few slides ago, I shared my disclosures. So here's my disclaimer. In this presentation, you'll be exposed to a lot of credible science. There's 60 citations printed right on the slides that you'll see today that support the science that I'll be sharing. But this presentation also reflects my personal experience as a woman who's faced aging-related challenges, medical, physical, emotional, and I'll share a little bit more about that later, but for me it was a combination of really dialing in on my nutrition, changing up physical activity, and unfortunately ending a long-term relationship with my OBGYN. We'd been together for decades. This person delivered all 3 of my children, but in recent years just wasn't hearing me when it came to the issues that I was struggling with. And so moving on to a different provider who listened and understood and provided support and solutions, at least things to try. And so through my personal experience, I know there's so many things we can do to optimize our health at every age. And I'm here to be a voice of encouragement. And that's really what today's session is all about. And while we can't change the family history one inherited, and we can't change certain aspects of the food environment, today's session is putting a spotlight squarely on the topics, those lifestyle factors mostly in our control. Food and diet, including dairy foods, physical activity and nutrition as significantly contributive to empowering women on their wellness journeys. And I believe on these wellness topics that are top of mind for women today will be much more relevant and much more impactful as dietitians and with our profession if we don't look at these wellness benefits individually, but holistically. Because most of these wellness benefits that are top of mind for women are in that context of cardiometabolic health. So we're going to take a look at some of the science and some tips and tools, practical application for helping women in achieving these wellness benefits that they're looking for today. And we'll start with digestive health. Now, I did a quick Google search for news stories on gut health, and immediately 55,000 stories popped up. And a search for gut health videos, 28 million results. I mean, this is a topic people care a lot about. And as you know, the human GI tract is made up of 100 trillion bacterial cells that make up our gut microbiome, and that imbalance of good and bad bacteria can cause a host of health issues. And with that awareness, there's growing interest in keeping the good bacteria in our gut well nourished. Now, the microbes that reside in our gut, they do much more than, live there rent-free. A healthy microbiome can enhance our immunity, our brain functioning, our hormonal regulation, and our cardiometabolic health. On the flip side, an unbalanced microbiome can lead to things like inflammation, and those harmful byproducts and those inflammatory effects can lead to things like cardiometabolic factors, increasing weight and obesity, increasing blood pressure, and risk for heart disease. And interestingly, of the many differences between women's and men's bodies, the female microbiome is one of them. They're markedly different. For example, female sex hormone levels can affect the composition of the microbiome. And the microbiome regulates certain hormone levels, like estrogen. And certain species of gut bacteria can be responsible for some of the changes that we see during and after menopause, like raising blood pressure and increasing risk for heart disease. And so when it comes to keeping our gut healthy and happy, what approaches should we think about? Well, certainly what's good for the gut is good for the whole body, and things like diet and nutrition, but also sleep and stress management. But if we zoom in on nutrition and how we can use food to supercharge our gut health, obviously a well-balanced and diverse diet is super helpful, but two F's particularly stand out here: fiber and fermented foods. So the first F, fiber, comes from plants, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and fiber offers many positive health benefits, from enhanced glucose regulation, giving us a feeling of fullness, decreasing bloating and constipation, serving as delicious meals for our gut microbes. The recommendations for fiber for women are 25 grams a day for women up to age 50, and just a slightly smaller amount, 21 grams a day, for women over age 50. Now, I know you're familiar with the body of evidence supporting the role of high fiber foods in health. I'm just going to highlight one novel study, a systematic review and meta-analysis. It was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2020. And researchers here looked at the impact of soluble fiber on weight. There were nearly 4,000 people included in the 62 RCTs evaluated, with interventions lasting at least 4 weeks in duration, with no calorie restrictions. Now, with those parameters, the analysis showed that with about 7 grams of soluble fiber intake a day over about an 8 to 12 week period, there was significant, modest but significant, reductions in BMI and waist circumference. And while the weight loss was modest, it was 0.33 kilograms, or about 0.7 pounds, remember, this was without any calorie restriction. And the researchers note that this level of weight loss was similar to systematic reviews that look at Mediterranean or low carbohydrate type diets. Now, what I love about studies like this, and so many others, is that powerful pairing of nutrient-rich high fiber foods with the other F, fermented foods, which are receiving a resurgence in popularity in recent years. Did you see the recent Today's Dietitian What's Trending in Nutrition survey? It's a survey of RDs. It was published just last month. And fermented foods like yogurt earned the top spot as the #1 superfood for 2025. Now, it's that fermentation process that transforms milk into other delicious and nutritious dairy foods, like yogurt and aged cheeses and kefir. And the fermentation process can also add nutritional properties to a food by producing bioactives like peptides and short-chain fatty acids. The fermentation process can also aid in digestion and absorption and metabolism, which likely plays a role in its link to reducing inflammation. Now, some fermented foods certain yogurts and kefir may be sources of live microbes, probiotics, that benefit the microbiome, and also emerging evidence indicates a link to modulating weight. So in the next few slides, I'm going to highlight 3 studies that showcase the benefits of fermented and other whole dairy foods on digestive and cardiometabolic health. So this first study was significant because it assessed over 100 studies, over 40 years. So it reflects a large body of evidence. And the researchers found that consumption of yogurt had many favorable health benefits, including improved cardiometabolic health, healthy body weight, lowering risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, improved GI health, including lactose digestion and absorption, improved bone health, even reducing risk of breast and colon cancers. The second study emphasized the benefits of yogurt consumption and heart health. Now, this study looked at data from the Nurses' Health Study, which is a large cohort of about 185,000 people. And the researchers found that consumption of yogurt, modest consumption, 5 servings per week, was associated with reduced blood pressure. Now, this is important. As we know, high blood pressure is one of our greatest threats to our overall heart health. There's 120 million American adults living with high blood pressure, growing rates among pregnant women. And so daily encouragement of yogurt can be a welcome addition to heart-healthy diet plans. And third, this landmark study was published recently. It was in July of 2023 in the European Heart Journal. And what's significant about it is it was massive in scope. This study looked at data from the prospective urban-rural epidemiological study, the PURE study, and it assessed a very large database of 245,000 people in 80 countries across 5 continents. I mean, this is a truly global study. And the Pure Healthy Diet includes 6 food groups associated with heart health and reduced mortality: fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, fish, and dairy. And interestingly, the dairy foods included a variety of fat levels, with the majority coming from whole milk dairy foods. And the highest diet score came when people were consuming modest amounts of all of these food groups, essentially a healthy dietary pattern. And the researchers strongly concluded that this type of healthy dietary pattern, including dairy foods at all fat levels, played an important role in supporting heart health and can be included and recommended in healthy dietary patterns for diverse populations all over the world. Now, one more note on fermented dairy. There was a recent acknowledgement of the role of fermented dairy, yogurt, on cardiometabolic health. On March 1st of 2024, the FDA announced its first ever qualified health claim for yogurt. And the qualified health claim identifies a potential link between yogurt consumption and reduced risk for type 2 diabetes. Now, this is significant. As we know, type 2 diabetes is one of the most prevalent diet-related diseases in the US and around the world. There's 38 million American adults that have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, 100 million with prediabetes. It's one of the fastest growing chronic diseases among children. And the qualified health claim can be used on yogurt containers, dairy yogurt containers, regardless of fat level. And I think this will be an important educational tool for consumers, as we know those lifestyle factors like diet are so important for prevention and management of type 2 diabetes. So now that we've taken kind of a high-level look at some of the evidence supporting high-fiber foods, fermented dairy foods as part of holistic cardiometabolic health and a wellness benefit top of mind for women, let's turn to the other wellness benefit territory, strong and energized. And we spoke earlier about empowering women in living long lives and the just as important aspect of living a high-quality life to accompany all of our years. And a big part of achieving that comes from what we do to ensure we're staying strong and have the energy to live our best lives. Now, what often happens with typical aging, air quotes, typical aging in women is unintended, uninvited, unwelcomed, and detrimental impacts to our body composition. Increased fat mass, decreased lean mass, decreased bone mineral density. And this impacts our overall health and wellness by contributing to things like inflammation, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, osteoporosis. And this was my experience. When I was around 35, I hit what I call a metabolic speed bump. Now, as a dietitian, I was lecturing my undergraduate students about the typical aging process and the metabolic changes that come along with that. Like your metabolism slows about 5% per decade, starting around age 30. And then it happened to me. And so I did have to make changes in my physical activity and in my diet a little bit. And it wasn't fun. I was able to kind of make my way over that metabolic speed bump, kind of settle into a new normal and a new routine that worked for me. And then, fast forward a little bit, now I'm around 50-ish. And that metabolic speed bump, it was now a full-on metabolic roadblock. My weight kept creeping up. Despite exercising more and more, my exercise endurance was getting worse and worse. I went from feeling great running 6 miles to not even being able to run 1 mile, not even half a mile. For the first time, my sleep wasn't good. Blood work showed many abnormalities. My hemoglobin A1C was in the pre-diabetes range, and I had a diagnosis of acute inflammatory process. And this is about the time where I broke up with my OBGYN. And it did take a few, first dates to meet a new provider that I really did want to enter a relationship with. And it was all worthwhile, all that time and effort and energy, because what I've learned is that while every woman is different, for so many of us, we don't have to succumb to the health effects of typical aging. And not only that, we can live better. Because every woman deserves to live with vitality and confidence and have the strength and energy to not just get through the day, but to slay the day. So in that context of what's top of mind for women, and in that context of holistic cardiometabolic health, how do we get more of that? Well, we can do it by focusing on high-performing BMWs, bones, muscles, and weight. Now, we often think of our bone health and our muscle health and our weight as 3 separate and different conditions. But biologically and physiologically, they're interconnected, they're interdependent, and some of the most impactful for our overall health and wellness. For example, incredibly important on their own, bones are part of the dynamic musculoskeletal system. And increased skeletal muscle mass is associated with positive cardiometabolic health and things like enhanced glucose, protein, insulin metabolism, and decreased arterial stiffness, inflammation, oxidative stress. Increased skeletal muscle mass is emerging as an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So where does weight play in? Well, excess weight puts excess pressure and stress on our heart and our blood vessels and our joints. And that increases our risk for heart disease and also musculoskeletal diseases like osteoarthritis. As dietitians, you know better than anyone when it comes to achieving and maintaining a healthy body weight, calories are key, but also a high-quality diet is foundational. And so as we put all of this together, focusing on high-performing bones, muscles, and weight can really help us in empowering women to optimize their body composition, their body weight, and help them in achieving that strong and energized wellness benefits that they're looking for. And when it comes to lifestyle factors, obviously nutrition, but also physical activity. I mean, they're really a 1-2 punch. So let's take a look at some of the evidence and some of the recommendations in helping us fuel our high-performing BMWs. starting with bone health. Now, you may not spend a lot of time thinking about your bones or your bone health, but they are complex living tissues, and bones really do deserve our appreciation and respect. After all, there are 206 of them in the body. Now, throughout our childhood and adolescence and into our early 20s, there's one type of bone cell, the osteoblasts. They're hard at work building and forming bone length, bone strength, bone density. And proper nutrition during these rapid bone building years is essential for building those foundational stores that help us achieve our peak bone mass and in supporting our bone health throughout our lives. Now, our hormones also play an important role in our bone health, particularly estrogen, which is the primary hormonal regulator for bone metabolism for both men and women. And estrogen plays a protective role in our bone health. It helps stimulate bone formation, also helps prevent bone breakdown. Now, ideally, we'd maintain our peak bone mass that we achieved in our 20s, but as we enter our 30s, our estrogen levels begin to decline. And by age 50, they may be half of what they were in our 20s. At the same time, another type of bone cell, the osteoclasts, which are responsible for breaking bone down, may begin to outpace the bone building part. And if our diet is lacking in key nutrients and we're not participating in strength building activities, over time, that can result in weakening of our bones, losing bone mass, and bone diseases like osteoporosis. And so when it comes to fueling and optimizing our bone health, what nutrients should be top of mind? We're probably thinking calcium and vitamin D, and you'd be absolutely correct. Calcium is the primary mineral that makes up our bone mass. Vitamin D aids in calcium absorption, but beyond those, protein provides the structural framework upon which minerals are deposited. After calcium, phosphorus is the second most abundant mineral that makes up our bone mass. Potassium is important because it aids in calcium balance, and zinc stimulates collagen synthesis, which makes our bones strong and resistant to fractures. And dairy foods provide all of these nutrients that our bones and bodies crave. And it's because of this evidence that the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Institutes of Health, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines all recommend daily consumption of dairy to ensure that we achieve that peak bone mass and also to maintain our bone health as we age. Now, before we go further into fueling our BMWs, let's talk for a moment about the importance of physical activity. Because exercise is just so important for our overall health and wellness. And we're highlighting some of those benefits here. I mean, just take a look at this list. Physical benefits, disease prevention, mental benefits, brain health. I mean, who wouldn't want all of these benefits and more? Now, the physical activity recommendations for adults in the US are 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate intensity activity. You can achieve this in about half the amount of time by upping the intensity level from moderate to vigorous. Now, in addition, strength training 2 to 3 times a week is also recommended for muscle building and muscle repair. Now remember, our muscle mass or muscle tissue is biologically active, which means it burns calories even at rest. So another benefit of participating in weight training activities is enjoying a small post-workout calorie burning boost. And so let's move on to the W of our BMWs, weight. We've been talking throughout the presentation how weight weighs on women's overall health and wellness. But it's important to note, as with our digestive health and with our bone health and our muscle health, our female hormones play a unique relationship with our weight. At least 20% of women report gaining 10 or more unintended pounds during the menopausal transition. And in an era where our society embraces silver bullets and fad diets, we as dietitians, we must stand strong on the science and remember that in any sustained, successful weight loss or weight management kind of program for sustained health, we must have a high quality diet. And that those gains in diet quality can easily be made by consuming more of the foods most Americans are missing out on. Whole grains, vegetables, dairy foods, fruits. These are foods that offer a variety of macro and micronutrients. They're nutrient dense and essential for optimal health and wellness. But when it comes to achieving and maintaining a healthy body weight, dairy foods may not be top of mind, but maybe they should be. There is compelling research showing the benefit of increased dairy consumption on body weight, and I'm going to showcase that with just 2 studies. The study on the left is a systematic review, included 31,000 people, and looked at the role of dairy foods with an impressive risk reduction in overweight and obesity with higher dairy intake, particularly milk and yogurt consumption. So risk for overweight and obesity was reduced by 25% when consuming about 1 to 1.5 cups of dairy a day. And those with higher yogurt intake also had a reduced risk for type 2 diabetes. Now, the study on the right assessed data from the Nurses' Health Study, included 38,000 women, and looked at dairy's role in weight across the menopausal transition. And women who consumed 2 or more servings of dairy a day had a 10% reduced risk for obesity, and those with higher yogurt consumption had a 43% reduced risk for obesity and had the smallest total weight gain across the menopausal transition. And the researchers in both of these studies note the actions of key nutrients found in abundant amounts in dairy foods that helped and achieve these impressive results. So it is those nutrients found in rich amounts in dairy foods, of course, is part of a holistic dietary pattern that really does give it an advantage in helping women achieve the strong and energized wellness benefits that they're looking for. But on that topic of healthy dietary patterns, there is kind of a darling nutrient of the moment, right? Protein. So let's take a moment to talk about protein. Year over year, Americans are reporting they want to consume more protein, right? The latest IFIC Food and Health Survey, nearly 70% of Americans had protein at the top of the list. So how does protein fuel our BMWs? Well, we've already talked about for bone health how protein provides that structural framework for bones upon which minerals are deposited. For our muscles, protein offers up those foundational building blocks, the amino acids needed for muscle growth and maintenance and repair. For our weight, protein's the most satiating nutrient. It helps give us that feeling of fullness and satisfaction during and in between meals. And, when we're rapidly losing weight, high quality protein, along with weight training, can be very helpful in preventing bone and muscle loss that often accompanies rapid weight loss. And while many Americans are reporting they want to consume more protein, what they may not realize is that not all protein is created equal. And dairy foods may be some of the best sources of high quality protein people are missing out on. So how much protein do we need? Maybe more than you think. There was a study published just last year in the Journal of Nutrition and showed that women aged 19 to 50 were 3 times more likely to be falling short on their protein requirements compared to men. Now, the Institutes of Medicine recommend that 10 to 35% of our calories should come from protein foods. And while many women may be achieving that lower end of that range, many may benefit from a moderately higher intake, including active women, women on weight loss and weight maintenance diets, and older women. Some experts recommend that we aim for 30 grams of high-quality protein with each meal and 15 grams of high-quality protein with each snack. Now, of course, before we'd recommend any significant changes to diet, we'd recommend you talk to your physician or your registered dietitian. Same would hold true in making significant changes to physical activity. Talk to your doctor or a credentialed health fitness professional. So now let's just recap in this snapshot here of some of the ways that dairy foods provide unique benefits in these wellness territories, top of mind for women today. And so showing those in each of these boxes: digestive health, heart health, and the strong and energized bones, muscles, and weight. And we want all women to experience and benefit from these wellness benefits. And of course, we can't really go further without talking about the important topic of lactose and lactose intolerance. So I wanted to share recent data from the National Medical Association. The NMA is the leading medical authority representing Black physicians in the US. And just last April, they published a journal supplement dedicated to an evidence review on the role of dairy foods in health outcomes for Black Americans for generational health. Now, the supplement contains several articles, each dedicated to a different life stage. But their overall position reaffirms a previous position that they came out with about a decade ago, which says that dairy foods play an important role in the lives of Black Americans and can be recommended for Black Americans in supporting generational health across the lifespan. Now, related to women's health, and especially women of childbearing age, the NMA does raise concern that the majority of Black women in the US are not meeting the recommended 3 daily servings of dairy a day and are missing out on key nutrients important for their overall health and wellness. They do recommend educating patients about ways to incorporate dairy into the diet and the importance of dairy consumption in achieving both prenatal and postnatal health outcomes. So we created this resource in response to questions about lactose, and it's intended to raise awareness of the many options available in the dairy case, many foods with a variety of lactose levels, from 0 lactose in lactose-free milk, which is real milk with all the same nutrients, just without the lactose. It's available in 97% of retail stores, so very accessible, to lower lactose options in things like aged cheeses, fermented foods, yogurts and kefir, cottage cheese as well. So the bottom line here is that lactose intolerance doesn't have to mean no dairy. So I hope so far in this presentation, this has been helpful in either your learning or reassuring or reaffirming some of what you know about the importance of how lifestyle factors, diet and physical activity play in these wellness territories top of mind for women in improving holistic cardiometabolic health and in helping women achieve longevity and high quality lives. So as we wrap up, let's do a little more application, think about ways to gain some traction for action when it comes to empowering women's wellness. Now, as RDs, much of our success comes from helping women and making those healthy choices on a consistent basis so that they become habit and part of our daily routine. Now, last year, I completed CDR Certificate of Training Program in Obesity for pediatrics and adults, and I'm sharing here just some of the tools that were shared in that program. Now, I know this is likely a refresher for you, but it's important to remember that we have some evidence-based tools helpful for behavior modification and the important role of things like goal setting and self-monitoring, problem solving, reinforcement planning. It's also important to remember for your clients, but also for yourselves, that a women's health journey isn't a straight line from point A to point B, but that sustained success occurs from small but incremental changes over time. Oops. And let's not forget, within phones and hands reach, there's so many resources available to us, maybe for your own learning, but also for recommending to others. Things like common phone apps, that track our physical activity and our steps or our goals. My Oura Ring tracks 18 biometrics. It tracks physical activity and exercise, but it also tracks things like my heart rate and my sleep quality and stress levels. Some days I don't look at that part of the app, but it is helpful to know it's there if you want to have access to it. Nothing on diet and nutrition yet. I do think that's an opportunity for us. And while it is, to me, it's like a gut punch to see statistics like only 2% of nutrition information shared on TikTok videos is accurate. it is nice to see more experts, credentialed experts, gaining a little bit of share of voice in social media. Let's not forget that there are credible and authoritative websites and organizations that offer free and great information. My Plate, Eat Right, Mayo Clinic, American College of Sports Medicine, you're familiar with these. And as women, I know many of you are as passionate as I am about empowering women's wellness. And as women and RDs, there's so many things we can do to be agents of change for women's wellness. Things like perhaps it's focusing on your workplace and fostering an environment. Maybe it's starting an employee resource group, supporting parents of young children, or even working women taking care of their elderly parents. Maybe it's establishing a dedicated and comfortable breastfeeding room for moms coming back to work. In our communities, we can help expand screening for food and nutrition insecurity and making those referrals to the important federal feeding programs like WIC and SNAP and school meals. If we have a chance to participate in women's research, we should consider that. And of course, we can be role models and encouragers for other women. Now, on a slightly larger scale, I think there are some important ways that we can really shape the future of women's wellness. Things like increased coverage for RD services in the weight and cardiometabolic health space. More women's research, particularly RCTs and community-based research and implementation science. And one I'm very, very excited about, which is partnering with health systems and health tech companies, leveraging digital platforms like electronic medical records, patient portals, wearables, apps, opportunities in retail with e-commerce, so many opportunities that really create transformative opportunities to reach millions of Americans with credible and personalized eating guidance. And I think this creates an enormous opportunity for us as RDs and for our profession to be put right in the center of the digital health revolution and ensure that accurate information is distributed broadly. So thank you. I thank you for taking the time to be here and attend this session today. I would really love to be a resource for you and with you. And my contact information is here. We do have a little bit of time, I believe, for some Q&A, but honestly, it doesn't have to be directed at me. I know there's so many smart people in this room, and if you'd like to share a tip, a tool, a resource, a study, an app, whatever it is that you use with your clients or you found helpful for yourselves, this is an opportunity for us to be a sharing community and hear from each other. So we have a couple of folks, Leslie and Peter, that have microphones. If you want to make a comment or a question, feel free to raise your hand and they'll come around to you. Pass the mic.
Hi. We've always had the recommendations to focus on low-fat milk, and I noticed the research is showing full-fat milk provides the same cardiovascular benefits. Could you comment on that?
I'd be happy to. The research has been strong, and we have a solid body of evidence showcasing the benefit of dairy at all fat levels, but particularly in the area of whole milk dairy foods. The evidence has been there, it's strong. You've probably seen there's been great debates that the Academy has done them, American ASN has done them. And so I think we're in gaining momentum for additional acceptance of the science that strongly supports that whole milk dairy foods has no detrimental impact on heart health. It has a neutral or even beneficial impact. So we're looking forward to opportunities to change some of those long-standing recommendations. Thank you for the question.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Can you comment at all on dairy and inflammation?
Another long-standing myth, and as I noted a little bit, we have a lot of evidence, particularly in the fermented dairy space, around not does dairy cause inflammation, but it actually reduces inflammation. And some of this comes from the food matrix science and the dairy matrix science, where we can see that, yes, the nutrients that are at play, but the dairy matrix science gives us more opportunity to learn about the full impact of food on health. So you look at things like bioactives. So in dairy, there are bioactive lipids, bioactive proteins, peptides, bioactive carbohydrates, and many of those have been linked to reducing inflammation, reducing risk for infection and disease. And again, it helps us understand more the mechanisms at play in the connection between food and health, and certainly inflammation is one of them. Hi.
I see a lot of older people, and they really enjoy buttermilk. And I just wanted to see if you could comment a little bit on that, because I know it's made different than it used to be.
I'm sorry, I'm not, oh, there, yes, hi. Yeah, what a great question. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity to think about the variety of dairy options out there. It's not one thing, right? And buttermilk is so useful in so many culinary applications. As my mother-in-law also really enjoyed like just straight up drinking buttermilk, but it is useful in a lot of recipes and other applications as well. Yeah, sometimes we forget about buttermilk. Thank you for sharing this.
Hey.
Hi.
I like that you put a protein recommendation above the RDA. You put 1 to 1.7 grams per kilo. I saw there was a couple references on the slide, but I wasn't sure. I was just curious what you were basing that on, or what reference. Not that it needs a I think that's right on, but just whether it's your personal clinical judgment on that, or you got that from somewhere.
Yeah, and if the references were too small, I'll be happy to share those. But the recommendations that we're talking about are recommendations that come from credible sources, whether it's dietary guidelines or other sources. And that it is a little confusing, right? Because you look at different authoritative recommendations and they vary a bit. You know, the RDA, as you know, was based on preventing deficiencies. It's not optimal. And so I think that's where some of this discrepancy is coming from, but it usually causes some questions among consumers, like how much? And I do think we are starting to see, particularly in women's health, the benefit of protein consumption and skeletal muscle mass for longevity. I just saw a statistic very recently that physical activity, number of steps a day, is even linked to longevity. So we're seeing these wellness factors having a more increased impact, evidence-based, on not only longevity, but quality of life. I'm guessing you're of the opinion that higher protein is better. Yeah. Could we give him the mic again, please?
Yeah, like you had mentioned 30 grams per feeding, which a lot of people in the area have pointed out as the minimum to stimulate mTOR and start muscle protein synthesis, and how, yeah, quantity and eating protein throughout the day is really important for body composition and muscle health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that quality, I'm glad you emphasized the quality of the protein. It's something that we care a lot about. It's that not all protein is created equal. Yeah, thank you.
Hi. I work with the kids, moms and pregnant women and lactations. And in our program, we recommend low-fat milk for kids from 2 to 5 and pregnant and lactated mom. In your presentation, you said whole milk. What's your intake about that?
Yeah, so I'll just say that as a checkoff organization, we have the USDA has oversight to our science and to what we say. So we follow the guidelines from USDA, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which do recommend whole milk dairy for children 1 to 23 months, and then switching to low-fat milk. Again, science, may show otherwise, but for the time being, that is the recommendation. So I'll stick with that.
Yes, my comment was kind of similar to that because I work in WIC. So we're required to issue that and are not allowed to issue a higher fat milk unless there's, really a need for it. And so anyway, with issuing, the low fat milk, we have so many moms and so many families that like, can't I have 2% or can't I have whole? And it's really wanted out there, but it's just the current guidelines that are in place right now.
You're bringing up such an important point, though, because consumers are already there, right? And for a long time, if you look at all the types of milk that are sold, whole milk is the version that's sold at the highest amount, and we're even seeing bumps in that, so it continues to increase. So there is consumer interest. It's what kids are used to, and families are used to having at home, absolutely.
We have time for some more.
Oh, here's one.
Here we come.
Use your tennis shoes.
Hi, and thanks so much for the great presentation. I primarily work in oncology, so I had a little bit of a question about the recommendation for specifically like postmenopausal women and a low-fat diet in general for breast cancer. I didn't know if you had any insight on that or if that would still be applicable in this setting.
Yeah, I think in a clinical situation under a very serious health condition or diagnosis, I wouldn't make any general recommendations. I would say really that needs to be a tailored dietary recommendation working with your physician and registered dietitian. I know keeping optimal nutrition and staying as healthy as possible is so important, and sometimes higher fat foods can be helpful in maintaining calories and things like that. I've been through a situation with my own father who had esophageal cancer, and it's not easy. As a clinical dietitian, I've spent some time doing oncology as well, and while you look for kind of general recommendations, it really does have to be tailored to each person, and as you know, throughout the course of their treatment, things can change. Yeah. But thank you for what you do. Really important.
I'm curious about the advocacy work that the National Dairy Council is allowed or even not allowed to do. Do you have lobbyists that work through USDA to impact maybe regulation or even policy?
Yeah, as a checkoff, again, paid by dairy farmers that go into a checkoff, we are the research and education arm of the dairy community, and that is our scope. So we can't lobby or advocate for policy. We do have a regulatory team that's led by RDs and nutrition scientists, but our role in that really is in the public process. So we can submit comments, just like any open comment period for dietary guidelines or other kind of federal kinds of things, but that's the limit of what we can do in that realm.
Just a follow-up question to that then. My understanding is sort of back in the day, if I could use that term, the subsidies for dairy farmers for whole milk was higher than it was for low-fat milk, and so there was some concern about the advocacy being done for whole milk. Had nothing to do with nutrition, but everything to do with these the monies that were going back to the dairy farmers. So if you could clarify that from a historical perspective, that would be great.
Yeah, so the checkoff, the dollars that farmers pay into checkoff comes from the amount of dairy that they produce. And again, our scope is only in the science base, so we can only speak to what the science shows. And we do have very high standards of scientific integrity. So I'll give you one example. If we support a study, and so we award research dollars to an academic who does a research study, they are required by our own expectations of scientific integrity, you must publish that study, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. So we believe as scientists and registered dietitians that we have to just help to build the body of evidence, and we learn, you know, twists and turns along the way. We learn from all of that body of evidence. So, so that's our position on what science we talk about, what science we invest in. It really is for to uncover the health and wellness benefits of dairy foods. And I'll tell you, this started over 100 years ago. Dairy farmers started investing in science in 1915. And it was to help kind of solve some of the biggest public health issues of the day. For example, you know, we supported the research of E.V. McCollum. He was a researcher out of Johns Hopkins University. And he discovered a bunch of vitamins. He discovered vitamin A and vitamin D and thiamine, and it was his research that really helped to make the recommendation and solidify why we should be fortifying milk with vitamin D. And that helped to eradicate a significant public health issue of the day, which was rickets. That impacted millions of kids in this country. And so, you know, look at our research record over the years, we continue to try and invest in science that helps solve some of these big public health issues of the day.
This will be our last one.
Just real quick, what do you think about raw milk?
Oh, what a great question. Thanks for asking. So I'm going to stick to the science on this, what the evidence shows, right? The evidence is very clear. The science is very clear. Pasteurization is helpful, it's useful, it helps keep our milk safe, right? For any potential harmful bacteria or pathogens that may be in milk, pasteurization ensures that we have a safe milk supply. It retains all of the nutrients that are in milk, but keeps it safe. And so, you know, that's the reassurance that we can give to the public, is that when you buy pasteurized milk, you know the milk you're consuming is safe. And it's not just the dairy community saying this. The CDC, the FDA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they all are on the same page as this. And the AAP, in fact, they have a policy statement that's updated every 5 years. So that's my opinion on raw milk. But thanks for asking. I appreciate that. You guys, what a wonderful group. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.